Hey there, adventurers. My name is Judd, and you're watching Short Rest Studios, where we believe fun builds community. And today, I'm going to show you how I create these really cool, fun monster stat blocks in Obsidian. Let's jump right into the app. This is how I format my monster stat blocks in Obsidian. I love to use a lot of color in my notes because it helps me to stay focused and to be able to quickly get an eye on the things that I need to see when I'm running a game. And this markdown tag is here because I'm actually pulling this in from another note. I keep all of my monster stat blocks in separate notes in Obsidian so that I can look them up or pull them into my session notes as I need to. Now let's take a look at the CSS required to get this look. It starts with this comment line, and there's a lot of it. So I'm not going to go over everything in this video, but I will drop a link for free to the CSS file you need to get the entire look of these stat blocks in the description of this video. This section creates the look and feel of the tables that we're going to have inside our stat block callout. It renders the table, creates alternating colors in the table rows, draws the borders, puts the rounded corners on the table, and creates the text color. I used to be a web designer, and I know a good bit about CSS, but I don't know everything, and I don't know what this border collapse part does, but I know it doesn't work without it. I did have to look for some help online for some of this. Here my CSS editor is telling me that I don't need to define 0 pixels for my border spacing, but I actually do because the table will display this weird ghost border that sort of ruins the look of the whole thing if I don't put 0 pixels in here. This section renders the table header, and again, because I'm limited in my knowledge, I don't know how to get Obsidian to not display a table header, so I just formatted this to look like any other row. I changed the font family, the font weight, the font color, and I did text shadow none because I actually defined other table headers in my notes to have a text shadow. One of the things you have to do in CSS when you have rounded corners is you have to define those corners not just for the table, but also for the cells that are affected by them. If you don't, you'll have sharp corners poking out from behind or in front of your nice rounded corners. And that's why I have this section with all this repeated code, because I have to define the corner radius for each of those cells that sits in an outer corner of the table. And this section of code creates another callout for monster actions that's going to show inside the main monster stat block callout. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's very similar code to what I've done before. And then there's another section here for monster passive features, which is another callout that I want to show inside the stat block. The position and z-index lines there, they were left over from something else, so I got rid of them. They don't need to be there. The icons that I use are from lucid.dev, which is the same place the default Obsidian icons come from. This is one of the easiest things to change. I just go to lucid.dev and I searched for a skull because I wanted a skull icon on my stat blocks, and there it is. And then you can just drop the name into your code. Now I showed you the complicated part first, and this is really the easiest, and that is creating the actual callout. Obsidian has a lot of default callouts for different things, and it's really simple to create your own. This straightforward code right here creates a custom callout, and this line is where I customize the icon. You just put Lucid dash in the name of the icon you want to use from the Lucid website. Really simple. The rest is just defining the shape and color of the box and the color of the text. Once you've created your CSS snippet file or downloaded my free one from the description below, go into your Obsidian Vault and click on the settings, then appearance. And at the very bottom of that window, you'll see CSS snippets. It'll probably tell you they're not available. You just click on the folder icon. It'll take you to the right place to install that file, and you just copy the file there, enable it in your settings, and you'll be able to use it. Now for the real fun, we're going to build an actual monster stat block using this Nimble Fae monster zine. I am running a Nimble campaign, so it seemed appropriate. I got this as a member of the Nimble Patreon, where I get all kinds of fun new content for the game all the time. But they're also currently running a Kickstarter for a Monsters and More expansion, which is a hardcover monster book and tons of other great new material. You should really go check that out. I'll drop a link to it in the description. Full disclosure, Nimble isn't sponsoring this video, but the designer is a friend and supporter of this channel. Mav, the Winter Queen, has some cool features, so I'm going to go ahead and drop her stat block into my Obsidian notes. Real quick, here's a look at a previous homebrew monster stat block that I dropped into my notes just to give us an idea what it's looking like. Creating a table with markdown and Obsidian is pretty darn simple. You start by defining your header row. You put a vertical line or pipe and then a space before and after each bit of text that goes into a cell on that row. And then this is the part that really tells Obsidian that you're building a table. You type a pipe, a space, at least one dash followed by another space, and then you do that again for each cell. And you got to make sure you repeat the pattern as it looks here for each cell that was in the header row so that they match. Otherwise, Obsidian's not going to interpret it properly. I created a new node in my Homebrew Monsters folder that I'm going to call Mav the Winter Queen, and we're going to go ahead and build that stat block. The first step is to hit Command P or Control P in Windows to bring up properties, and you're going to add a file property, which is a pretty quick search. And we're going to add CSS classes, and I'm going to choose mstats because that's what I named the class that defines these tables. Now we want to create our call out, and we're going to do that by typing the greater than sign followed by an open bracket, exclamation point, stats, and a close bracket. If you recall our CSS, you remember that stats is the name I gave to the call out for our stat blocks. The first line immediately after the tag has to be a title. If you don't put a title, it's just going to say stats, and that's okay if that's what you wanted to say, but you may not. And also, I messed up here. I forgot to put a space after the closed bracket, so none of this is going to actually display properly until I fix that. Now on with what we were actually doing. I'm going to create a table here for her stats. And I'm starting with level 10, size medium, and then group Fey. And of course, I'm delimiting that with a pipe followed by a space, then the text, then a space, then another pipe. And the asterisks, by the way, are just to bold the text. And here's where the magic happens. Pipe, space, I do 3 dashes, another space, and then a pipe to set off the next cell. And just remember that you have to make sure that you match the number of cells in your header row, and this is where the table is created. Yeah, here's where I realized what I did and went back and put a space after that closed bracket so that now my call out is actually working properly. And now to finish off our basic stats, we're going to drop in HP, armor, and speed. And that is the end of this table. I like to make some of my callouts collapsible, which is pretty easy. It saves a little screen space, and the info is still available to me when I need it. To do this, you just add a plus after the close bracket on your callout tag, and that makes it display open, but it is collapsible. If we put nothing after that close bracket, then Obsidian just displays the full callout as it is. But with a minus sign after the close bracket, it's going to display collapsed, but I can always access the information just as I had it before. And now we're going to create a second callout within this callout for actions. We have to start this line with 2 greater than signs so that Obsidian recognizes it as a nested callout. This actions tag is a callout that I created in CSS, so Obsidian's going to know what to do with it. And don't worry, this CSS will be included in the file that I'm giving you at the link in the description. And now to make things a little easier on myself, just because I'm lazy, I'm going to go into the PDF and copy Mav's actions and paste them into my note. And of course, in copying and pasting that from a PDF, it actually copied and pasted all the line breaks. So I've got to go in and kind of clean that up so that Obsidian actually sees all of this text as part of the callout. And it looks like I accidentally deleted some of the asterisks from Stormlord's Gust. So I'm going to just put those back in so that it's bolded like it should be. And here I'm putting a dash and a space before each item, so Obsidian will display it as a bulleted list because it makes me feel good. I also created a call out for passive features, which Mav doesn't have any of those on her stat block, but I'm going to use it for her last stand feature. I'm just going to drop that in really quick the same way that I did the other one. I use the passive tag to create the call out. I copy and paste the text from the PDF, and then I clean up the line breaks that came over from the PDF. And now I have a second call out nested within the full stat block. There are a couple of different ways to work this final bit of magic. You type 2 opening brackets and Obsidian fills in the closing brackets and gives you an opportunity to choose a note to link to. And that just creates a clickable link in your note to the stat block. The other option, which I prefer, is to put an exclamation point right before those opening brackets, and then when you select your stat block, it actually embeds it in the note, so you have it right there in your session notes as you need it. It's a beautiful thing. And it's actually really easy if you want to alter these last two callouts and create your own different variations with different colors, different icons, whatever you want to do for whatever you need. Hey, if you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And I would really appreciate it if you'd consider supporting this channel by joining the Adventurers Guild at patreon.com/shortreststudios. And if you join at the Adventurer tier, you actually get my whole campaign notebook, including these callouts and the CSS related to that. Don't forget to check out the Nimble Monsters and More Kickstarter. And if you would like to know more about Nimble, check out this video. And I'll see you next time on Short Rest Studios.